27th. The emperor passed the whole day beside the fire, sometimes reclining on his couch and sometimes sitting in his armchair. He still suffered very much from the pain in his head and a toothache, and the secretion of saliva had not diminished. He again had recourse to warm flannel and napkins, by the use of which he had yesterday experienced a little relief. I warmed them and applied them in the same manner as before. The emperor appeared very sensible to the attentions I showed him, and several times laying his head on my shoulders, he said, "My dear Las Casas, you relieve me very much." The pain subsided, and he slept for a short time. Then raising his eyes, he said to me, "Have I been losing sleep? Are you not very much fatigued?" He called me his frere hospitalier, the Knight of Malta of St. Helena. But the pain soon returned with violence, and he sent for the doctor, who found him feverish. He was seized with the chilliness, which had attacked him on the preceding day, and which obliged him to keep close to the fire. He continued in the same state throughout the whole of the evening. About 7 o'clock, he proposed going to bed. He would not eat anything, but he ordered his valet de chambre to toast some bread, and he himself made a little toast in water, in which he put some sugar and orange flowers. In the course of the evening's conversation, the following remarks fell from the emperor. "Immorality," said he, "is beyond a doubt the worst of all faults in a sovereign, because he introduces it as a fashion among his subjects, by whom it is practiced for the sake of pleasing him. It strengthens every vice, blights every virtue, and infects all society like a pestilence. In short, it is a nation's scourge. Public morality, on the contrary," added he, "is the natural complement of the laws. It is a whole code in itself." He declared that the revolution, in spite of all its horrors, had nevertheless been the true cause of the regeneration of morals in France, as the noblest vegetation is the offering of the filthiest manure. He did not hesitate to affirm that his government would mark the memorable epoch of the return to morality. "We advanced at full sail," said he, "but doubtless the catastrophes which have ensued will in a great measure turn all back, for amidst so many vicissitudes and disorders, it is difficult to resist the various temptations that arise, the allurements of intrigue and cupidity, and the suggestions of venality. However, the rising impulse of improvement may be impeded and repressed, but not destroyed. Public morality belongs especially to the dominion of reason and information, of which it is the natural result. And reason and information cannot again retrograde. The scandalous turpitude of former ages, the adultery and libertinism of the regency, and the profligacy of the reign which succeeded it, cannot again be revived unless the circumstances under which they existed should again return. And that is impossible. Before such a change can take place, the upper classes of society must again degenerate to a state of absolute idleness, so as to have no other occupation than licentiousness. The spirit of minds of people in the middle ranks must be destroyed, and finally the lower classes must replunge into that state of subjection and degradation which once reduced them to the level of mere beasts of burden. Now, all this is henceforth impossible. Public morals are therefore on the rise, and it may be safely predicted that they will gradually improve all over the world. About 9 o'clock, after the emperor had retired to bed, he desired that all his suite might come to his apartment. The Grand Marshal and his lady were among the number. The emperor conversed with us for half an hour, the curtains being drawn round his bed. The 28th. When I arose in the morning, I felt ill and wished to bathe my feet, but no water could be procured for that purpose. If possible, of our real situation at Longwood, water has always been very scarce here, but there's now less than ever, and we consider ourselves singularly fortunate when we are able to procure a bath for the emperor. We are no better provided with other things necessary in medical treatments. Yesterday, the doctor was mentioning in the emperor's presence drugs, instruments, and remedies of various kinds. But as he enumerated each article, he added, unfortunately, there is none to be procured on the island. Then said the emperor, when they sent us here, they took it for granted that we should always be well. Indeed, we are in want of the veriest trifles and necessaries. As a substitute for a warming pan, the emperor has been obliged to have holes bored in one of the large silver dishes used for keeping the meat warm at table, which is now filled with coals and used for the purpose of warming his bed. For some time past, he has very much felt the want of spirits of wine, by means of which he might have been enabled to warm his drink. The emperor has continued unwell the whole of the day. His face is still very much swelled, but the pain has somewhat abated. On entering his chamber, I found him sitting by the fire, reading the Guerres d'Italie by Servan. The work suggested to him the idea of some additions to our valuable chapters on Italy. He ordered the map to be brought to him. I was very much surprised to find that the author, in descending to our own times and narrating the campaigns of the emperor himself, is exceedingly imperfect in his descriptions, and seemed to be unacquainted with the country about which he wrote. This, said the emperor, is because he passed on without observing, and perhaps he would not have been capable of understanding even how he observed. But the true spirit of great enterprises and great results consists in the art of divining even without seeing. The emperor found himself obliged to retire to bed as early as he did yesterday. He felt chilly and seemed to be threatened with another attack of fever. He also felt symptoms of cramp. A little soup was the only nourishment he had taken since yesterday. He complained that his bed was badly made and that everything seemed to go wrong. The bedclothes were not arranged as he wished, and he ordered them to be spread out differently. He remarked that all who surrounded him had calculated on his preserving his health, and that they would certainly be very inexperienced and awkward should he happen to be attacked with a serious fit of illness. He ordered some tea to be made of orange tree leaves, for which he had to wait a considerable time. During the delay, he evinced a degree of patience of which I should certainly have been incapable. He conversed, when in bed, of the early years of his life, which he spent at Brienne, of the Duke of Orleans and Madame de Montesson, whom he recollected having seen. He spoke also of the families of Nogent and Brienne, who were connected with the circumstances of his youth. When I was raised to the head of the government, said Napoleon, Madame de Montesson applied to me for permission to take the title of Duchess of Orleans, which appeared to me an extremely ridiculous request. The emperor had supposed she was only the mistress of the prince, but I assured him that she had really been married to the duke with the consent of Louis XVI, and that after the death of her husband she always signed herself as Duchess Dowager of Orleans. The emperor said he had been ignorant of that circumstance. But at all events, said he, what had the first consul to do with that business? This was always my answer to the persons interested in the case, who were, however, not much satisfied with me. But was it to be expected that I should adopt immediately all the irregularities and absurdities of the old school? The 29th, my son was ill, and I was myself by no means well, being still troubled with restlessness during the night. The doctor came to see us. He informed me that the emperor was better, but that he did wrong in refusing to take medicine. The emperor did not send for me until 5 o'clock. He still complained of a violent pain in his head. He had his feet in water, and he experienced a little relief from this kind of half bath. He lay down on the sofa and took up the Memoirs of Noailles, from which he read aloud several passages concerning the Duc de Vendôme, the siege of Lyon, and some others concerning the Duke of Berwick, all of which he accompanied by remarks in his own style, novel, original, and striking. I very much regret that I am unable to record them here, but as I had not made a fair copy of these latter sheets of my journal when the manuscript was seized, I have now only the assistance of memoranda, frequently referring to circumstances which time has obliterated from my recollection. The emperor, observing on his drawers some confectionery or sweetmeats which had been accidentally left there. He desired me to bring them to him, and seeing that I hesitated and felt embarrassed as to know how I should present them, he said, "Take them in your hand. There's no need of ceremony or form between us now. We must henceforth be messmates." Though this is a trifling circumstance, yet to some it will develop more forcibly than volumes of description the real turn of mind, character, and disposition of the extraordinary individual to whom it relates. For men of judgment and observation will perceive and draw conclusions when others would not even form an idea. This consideration has induced me to insert in these volumes many things which I had originally intended to reject, through the fear that they might be thought insignificant or, at all events, useless. I have already mentioned that in his moments of good-humored familiarity, the emperor was accustomed to salute me with all sorts of titles, such as, "Good morning, Monseigneur. How is your Excellency?" One evening, when I was about to enter the drawing room, the usher opened the door for me, and at the moment the door of the emperor's apartment also opened, and he came out. We both met together, and in a fit of abstraction, he stopped me, and seizing me by the ear, he said playfully, "Well, where's your Majesty going?" But the words had no sooner been uttered than he immediately let go of my ear, and assuming a grave expression of countenance, he began to talk to me on some serious subject. I had, it is true, learned to close my ears when it was necessary, but the emperor was evidently sorry for having suffered the expression, "Your Majesty," to escape him. He seemed to think that though other titles might be used in jest, yet the case was very different with the one I had just employed, both on account of its own peculiar nature and the circumstances in which we were placed. Be this as it may, the reader may form what conjecture he pleases. I merely relate the fact.